Today is Wednesday, September the 25th, 2024. This is a message for fathers on behalf of mothers and their sons and daughters. Somehow, the nature and biology of human reproduction and birth got distorted for biblical reasons. You can have a man and a woman, a son, a daughter, a boy, and girl. But in order to be a husband, you must have a wife. And in order to be a father, there must be a mother. You cannot be a father or a son without a mother. Somehow the scripture Genesis 1:26 and 27 got so distorted as to cause people to believe that men can have babies. Men are an essential part of conceiving a new life. However, it is only women, the mother, who are capable of gestating and birthing the child. There has never been a time in the existence of human beings that this has not been the case. So if we are born in the image of God as a duality, it means that God is a man and a woman who are a father and a mother. And I will direct you back to Isaiah 50 for additional clarity on that point. But let's look at Genesis 1:26 through 28. Genesis 1:26 and 27 reads, "Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals and all over the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in blank own image. In the image of God, blank created them. Male and female, blank created them. But then God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground." How did the likeness of God go from a duality to a singularity into a trinity, none of which includes a wife or a mother? Before I start a discussion about the threshing floor, I want to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, especially complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I'll engage this part of the discussion using the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic manual used by all mental health professionals. This version was published in 2013. All stress-related disorders are not attributed to a traumatic event. For that reason, in this book, there is a category for trauma and stress-related disorders. These are defined as psychological distress following exposure to a traumatic or stressful event in cases where symptoms can be well understood within an anxiety or fear-based context. Many individuals who have been exposed to a traumatic or stressful event exhibit a phenotype which, rather than anxiety or fear-based symptoms, the most prominent characteristics are anhedonic and dysmorphic symptoms, which in this context means a loss of pleasure, enjoyment, or constant and compulsive behavior. Externalizing angry and aggressive symptoms or dissociative symptoms. Dissociative means separating or disconnected. Feel free to read through all of the information on these pages, but I'm only going to highlight what I need to make my point. So under the diagnostic features, these are the kinds of symptoms that you should look for or that would constitute a traumatic event. The directly experienced traumatic events include but are not limited to exposure to war as a combatant or a civilian, threatened or actual physical abuse, threatened or actual sexual violence, being kidnapped, being taken hostage, a terrorist attack, torture, incarceration as a prisoner of war, natural or human-made disasters, and severe motor vehicle accidents. Then moving down a little more, witnessed events, which include but are not limited to observing threatened or serious injury, unnatural death, physical or sexual abuse of another person due to violent assault, domestic violence, accidents, war or disaster, or a medical catastrophe in one's child. According to this book, to be classified as a trauma, indirect exposure through learning about an event is limited to experiences affecting close relatives or friends and experiences that are violent or accidental. For example, a death due to natural causes. A death due to natural causes does not qualify. Now let's look at the negative alterations or changes in cognitions, which means your thoughts, or mood that's associated with the event. Persistent, as in always or almost always, and exaggerated negative expectations regarding important aspects of life applied to oneself, others, or the future. I want to pause here to make the point that what is being described here is essentially a loss of innocence. It is that level of unknowing or ignorance that children have, that until being exposed to something for the first time, you have no knowledge or awareness of, and therefore have no negative feelings, thoughts, or reactions to it. It is only after you have been exposed when you can say things like, I can't unsee it. It will now constantly be a part of the life experiences you have had. That may manifest as a negative change in perceived identity since the trauma. Individuals with PTSD may have persistent, erroneous, which means false, cognitions, which means thoughts, about the causes of the traumatic event that led them to blame themselves or others. A persistent negative mood state either began or worsened after exposure to the event. The individual may experience marked, which means excessive, diminished interest or participation in previously enjoyed activities, feeling detached or estranged from other people, or a persistent inability to feel positive emotions, especially happiness, joy, satisfaction, or emotions associated with intimacy, tenderness, and sexuality. Individuals with PTSD may be quick-tempered and may even engage in aggressive, verbal, and/or physical behavior with little or no provocation, such as yelling at people, getting into fights, destroying objects. They may also engage in reckless or self-destructive behavior, such as dangerous driving, excessive alcohol and drug use, or self-injurious or suicidal behavior. PTSD is often characterized by a heightened sensitivity to potential threats, including those that are related to the traumatic experience. Do you know anyone who meets these criteria? Are you one of those people? Let's look at how they have listed the prevalence in the United States, remembering that this particular edition, the 5th edition, was published in 2013. Prevalence means how often does it happen? Highest rates, ranging from 1/3 to more than 1/2 of those exposed, are found among survivors of rape, military combat and captivity, and unethically or politically motivated internment and genocide. The prevalence of PTSD may vary across development. children and adolescents, including preschool children, generally have displayed lower prevalence following exposure to traumatic events. However, this may be because previous criteria were insufficiently developmentally informed. The prevalence of full threshold PTSD also appears to be lower among older adults compared with the general population. There is evidence that sub-threshold presentations are more common than full PTSD in later life, and that these symptoms are associated with substantial clinical impairment. What is a threshold as defined by religious doctrine? In everyday language, we consider a threshold the place at which you step from outside, inside a house or a room. There's also a wedding tradition that the husband carry the wife over the threshold of their first home. In clinical and psychological terms, we consider a threshold the magnitude or intensity that must be exceeded for a certain reaction. In other words, what is the most pressure, for example, that can be exerted before a certain kind of reaction occurs? That is the threshold. You must keep in mind that much of biblical doctrine comes from interpretations that make aspects of the stories symbolic. So let's stay in this mindset of symbolism. Symbolism means that this is an example of something that is like the actual thing it is symbolic of. The threshing floor is mentioned in many biblical scriptures and is taught in many different variations of doctrine. However, I want to focus on Daniel chapter 2, the threshing floor. The location and method of making threshing floors is described under agriculture. We also have a Department of Agriculture in the United States government. That's significant, but I'll come back to that in a moment. These floors have come into prominence because of the biblical events which occurred on or near them. Joseph with his kinsmen and Egyptian followers halted for 7 days at the threshing floor of Atad to lament the death of Jacob. Probably there was a group of floors furnishing a convenient spot for a caravan to stop. Travelers today welcome the sight of a threshing floor at their halting place. The hard, level spot is much preferable to the surrounding stony fields for their tents. And then I make a side note of, instead of the word tents, tenants. What types of developments have stony fields or stony floors? Here's the scripture. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces and became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. I want you to note that these are the royal coat of arms for the United Kingdom and Scotland. And what I want you to notice about these arms are the 3 animals that are depicted. There is a lion at the top in both of these images, and flanked on either side of a helmet of armor are another male lion with polish on its claws, as well as a crown on its head, and a unicorn that has been crowned, but also chained with a crown around its neck, and a unicorn that is not crowned on its head, and chaining it to what you might consider a ground. Using discernment, what do you believe these symbols might mean? Yesterday, September the 24th, Thalia Graves and her attorney Gloria Allred came forward with another lawsuit against Sean Combs. I want to thank Thalia for her bravery because although she is not the first woman to come forward publicly with a highly sensationalized accusation in the context of several other similar accusations, it is significant because of the level of trauma being experienced in the United States and other places at this time. Her disclosures were very personal to me, as I'm sure they were for many other women. And in the context of my call for mothers to help with identifying all of the barriers to women, young women, being able to find their eternal partner, grow in matured love with them, to begin a family together, to raise a lineage to 3 generations, the timing was perfect to address another significant aspect of those barriers.
We request that judgment be entered against defendants as follows: awarding compensatory damages for all physical injuries, emotional distress, psychological harm, anxiety, humiliation, physical and emotional pain and suffering, family and social disruption, and other harm in an amount to be determined at trial.
It's a pain that reaches into your very core of who you are and leaving emotional scars that may never fully heal. Some of the hardest parts of this pain are the shame and the guilt I have experienced that plays a negative part in my day-to-day ability to function properly. Being blamed, questioned, and threatened has often made me feel worthless, isolated, and sometimes responsible for what happened to me.
Good morning. It is what is today? Friday, June the 7th, 2024. And I got a lot of sleep last night. It wasn't as restorative as I would like it to have been, but I'm grateful because I think I went to sleep around 9 and I just woke up, and it's about 9 now, so that's pretty good. But anyway, I decided to go live because I wanted to say something about trauma recovery. Now, I think I've made clear over the last year, 2 years, how long have I been making these videos? A year and a half, about a year and a half, that you cannot heal from trauma until the cause of the trauma has been removed permanently. And it's not just about the cause of the trauma being removed, it is the person feeling or knowing with certainty that the trauma has been removed and will not return, because as long as they believe that the trauma still exists or that the potential for the trauma could reoccur, you cannot heal from it. You will always, be triggered, and those things cannot go away. The only thing you can do is cope. And that's what I spent my career doing, is helping people learn how to cope with their trauma and the anxiety that comes with not having that certainty, but removing any trauma we possibly could that they had control over. And that has always given them and myself a sense of safety, because at least there were aspects of it that could be controlled. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I've talked about this really requirement that there be an offering from people who have caused harm to other people. And at this point in 2024, there is no one who has not caused harm to another person somewhere, somehow, even though many people were not aware that they were hurting people. Once you become aware, however, you have an obligation and a responsibility to stop it, regardless of what you'll lose in the process. Because if people are not willing to make that sacrifice, then the trauma each person is experiencing themselves will continue, because the people who are responsible refuse to stop for whatever reason. So it will not work unless each person makes the decision to stop whatever they know is creating harm or trauma or terrorism or harassment for other people. The reason why I'm sharing this is because of my own trauma. And I have made very clear that I have to know with certainty that the people responsible for causing my trauma and the trauma of my kids and my husband and the people I care about in my immediate care circle are exposed and identified, and I need to know who it is. I need to know who the person is. There's a reason why our judicial system, before it got so messed up, required that an accuser face the person that they are accusing. But in this case, that's what I'm saying. And the reason is that you want to be able to use your inherent ability to read the person in terms of their body language and what they're saying, and really in their willingness to show remorse and a true desire to rectify whatever it was the person has lost. So really for me, why is resiliency and the study of resiliency important, especially in the city of Norfolk? According to the Office of Resilience website, Norfolk is a historic city that for over 400 years has been a key part of American history, commerce, and innovation. In terms of resilience, which the city of Norfolk says is at the core of their strategies, they have the goals to design a community for the future, to create economic opportunities, and to advance initiatives which would connect communities, deconcentrate poverty, and strengthen neighborhoods. In order to do this, the city says that actions that support the goals are important, and that those actions range from developing the gold standard in resilient land use codes to collaborating with global partners to innovate the next generation. According to the Ryan Resilience Lab, which opened June 1st, 2024. Since 1991, an organization of community members, businesses, governments, students, educators, and public servants have been working together to do something beautiful by restoring our home. To that end, they say, they rely on the power of partnerships rather than lawsuits and finger pointing to accomplish their restoration goals.
I'm so appreciative of the fact that all of you are the ones who made this magnificent building possible. Without the donations to the Elizabeth River Project by each and every one of you, this could not have been possible. I need to take just a minute to talk about what the mission of the Elizabeth River Project is. We all know that the main mission is to clean up the river, but the Elizabeth River Project is a small organization with a small staff, so it can't possibly do it all alone. So one of the things that we must do is create an army of people who want to do right by the river. And in order to do that, we need to have an organization that's capable of inspiring, educating, and motivating people to do their respective parts to help with our mission. We need to have an organization that's capable. We need to have an organization that's capable. We need to have an organization that's capable of inspiring, educating, and motivating people to do their respective parts to help with our mission.
In the context of my call to mothers to help identify and overcome the barriers for biological women. Let's look at an organization like Mom's Hope. Mom's Hope says that their purpose is to guide single moms in a way that empowers them to self-sufficiency with the goal to break the cycle of poverty. They also say that they provide hope to single low-income moms through one-on-one faith-based mentoring in order to support their resource development, personal advancement, spiritual growth, and family stability. And then they list their own call for other organizations to help: local nonprofit or not-for-profit organizations with a similar mission for women or single moms, local government agencies, or churches. They offer in exchange customized programs that might help them in missions that align with their own. They say since 2010, they've been committed to working with over 100 single mothers who are willing to do the hard work it takes to become self-sufficient. They say that not all moms qualify for their program, but those who do receive the support they need to succeed. They say that the average time spent in their program is 3.5 years, and over 350 families have been affected by the mission of Mom's Hope. They have used the generous giving of hundreds of volunteers who have worked with them over the years. And on average, about 150 people volunteer to make that ministry work. I found Mom's Hope as I was looking for information that might help me with this message, using the threshing floor as an example to explain the nature of trauma. In this lesson on their website, they use the scripture Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. They then offer a prayer before they begin the discussion about the threshing floor. The threshing floor in scripture is a place of separation and revelation, a place where the harvest was prepared by separating the grain from the useless straw for the purpose of exposing and collecting the most valuable part of the crop. Once the harvest is gathered, the practice of threshing begins with intentional destruction. This technique typically involves crushing the crop under the weight of a sledge or grinding wheel attached to the heavy hooves of an oxen.
Because you walk your walk. You walk your walk. And what we know is we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is good work. Because we know what we stand for.
Next, the mixture was tossed into the air, allowing the wind to separate the straw from the seed. This process carried the lighter part, the straw, away and allowed the seed to fall and collect on the ground. Then, according to Mom's Hope, the threshing process is a beautiful picture of worship and a metaphor for sanctification. The threshing floor, as a place of worship, is where God's provision for us is unearthed. Our responsibility is to cooperate with the process and in turn honor Him with the bounty of what is revealed. This progression of refinement is much like our lives. On a personal level, we too plant seeds and tend to our crops in hopes of a bountiful harvest.
Even if you're not a member of a union, you better thank unions.
We do this in all our relationships, careers, personal aspirations, and faith. However, our best efforts often get choked out by the weeds of pride, tares of selfishness, or the chaff of lost hope. Mom's Hope then asks, what issue in your life is God asking you to take to the threshing floor? Something that keeps you up at night, a thorn in your flesh, or something you'd like to bury 6 feet under. Perhaps you have been running from God, and yet He continues to woo you back onto the threshing floor, inviting you into His divine plan of healing and restoration. He does this not to harass you or cause you undue pain, but in His tender mercy, He wants to open your eyes to what is hidden inside that pain, conflict, or conviction. Well, it's nice to meet you. Yes, ma'am. So that's the other aspect of terrorism and why they do it. Terrorism, when you boil it all the way down, is simply constant harassment from someone you don't want to fight. You don't even know you're fighting them because they're not standing in your face punching you. But it's just, and they will not leave you alone. There's nothing you can do that will make them leave you alone. There's nothing you can stop doing that will make them leave you alone. They are going to harass you as long as there is any chance that you will fight against them, because it makes it a lot easier for them if you'll just play along. Could you just be my slave, please? Like, could you try? I just need to take your kids. Like, could you not fight me on this? Can you it would make it easier on both of us if you would just let me have your kids. Just let me take your husband, please. I mean, I'm not going to give him up, so you might as well just, that kind of, that's the kind of mentality we're talking about at the individual level here. And it's just layer upon layer of the same thing. Like, could you please just let us do this? Like, we want to just be able to watch you in your home all the time. It's really important that we're able to monitor you and to know what you're doing at all times. And if we cannot put this stuff in your house and up and around your house, we're not going to be able to do it. So could you please not fight us and just let us come in and do it? We're not even going to pay attention to you when we come do it. We're going to ignore you and act like you don't even exist, because we have to do this. We just need to be able to do it. I know you keep complaining it hurts and everything, but it'll go away. Like, do you hear what I'm saying to you? This is how they think. You have to, every single one of these people goes home somewhere and lives. And this is the kind of mindset that they have. It's just a collective of them. There are lessons to discover in order to serve and honor Him in a place of authenticity. Will it be painful to surrender to His process of refinement? Yes, that's a guarantee. However, we must submit and offer up our pride, fears, and resentments to the winnowing breath of the Holy Spirit. It's in this place of wholehearted surrender that God can and will move powerfully to heal your heart and take you to new depths of relationship with Him. You have important lessons to learn about who God has made us to be. We were designed by the Creator of the universe to be powerful, honorable, and useful in our sphere of influence. What do you say? Are you ready to surrender to the process? Bring it all and meet me at the threshing floor. We have important work to do.
So one of the things that we must do is create an army of people who want to do right by the river. And in order to do that, we need to have an organization that's capable of inspiring, educating, and motivating people to do their respective parts to help with our mission.
MetroNet has been an ongoing project for the city of Norfolk since December of 2021. Yesterday, September the 24th, our dog Chili was locked out, but before that happened, this door hanger had been left right at the threshold to our home. To help you understand the significance of ongoing construction projects in the context of threshing and trauma, I'd like to share with you a video clip on the Georgia stones, which were constructed in 1980. The clip is from the Y-Files channel, which I discovered just yesterday in a compilation video titled "The Stories That Made Me a Believer." I appreciate the journalistic integrity of the Y-Files because they provide information necessary in order to do the research yourself so that you can come to your own conclusions. Be aware if you do explore the channel that they do use a fear factor approach to the first half of their stories, but then follow it up with some feel-good information which should encourage you to do some research and investigating yourself.
There's no more famous Christian message than the Ten Commandments. And religious or not, the Ten Commandments have rules that all of us should follow. Don't lie, don't steal, don't hurt anybody. But those are rules for an individual. R.C. Christian was thinking bigger.
Ooh, bigger than the word of God given to Moses from the top of a mountain?
Yep.
Oy vey, the ego in this guy.
R.C. Christian said he represented a small group of loyal Americans who had spent the past 20 years planning an unusually large and complex monument. He brought with him a scale model with some very detailed specifications. The structure would stand 16 feet tall and consist of 4 stones arranged in the shape of a cross, capped with a central stone. The monument would need to display its message in the 8 most spoken languages in the world: English, Spanish, Russian, Chinese, Arabic, Hebrew, Hindi, and Swahili. It would also show the message in 4 dead languages: Babylonian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphics, Sanskrit, and classical Greek. Not only was this out-of-towner asking for stones larger than any Fenley had ever quarried, he wanted them cut, polished, and arranged as an enormous astronomical instrument.
The 4 standing stones should outline the migration of the moon over a year. A small viewing hole in the middle support stone would need to always show the North Star. A slot at the top of the middle support stone should align with a winter and summer solstice's rising sun and indicate noon at the equinoxes. A hole should be drilled through the capstone that focuses the sun on the center column at noon to indicate the day of the year.
R.C. Christian had one final request that caused a few people to question the purpose of the Georgia Guidestone project. The stone should be made to withstand the end of the world. Fenley's first thought was, "This guy's crazy, how can I get him out of here?" Fenley tried to discourage the stranger by quoting him a price much higher than any job he'd ever worked on. He said the job would need heavy equipment, special tools, and expensive consultants. R.C. Christian just nodded and asked how long. Fenley wasn't sure how long it would take, 6 months, maybe more, but he wouldn't even consider the job unless he knew R.C. Christian had the money. Christian asked if there was a trustworthy banker in town.
Well, there's a problem. There's no such thing as a trustworthy banker.
Well, that's a good point. But still, Fenley sent R.C. Christian to the Granite City Bank and told him to ask for the bank president, Wyatt Martin. At the bank, Martin and Christian came to an agreement. Martin would help set up the bank account where funds could be transferred to pay for the Guidestones, but the account couldn't be set up under a false name. R.C. Christian understood and agreed to give Martin his real name, but only if he promised to never tell anyone who he really was or who he represented.
No, but we know, right?
We do. We're getting there.
Fine, but don't take too long. The suspense is giving me agita.
Wyatt Martin agreed and would be the only man to ever know R.C. Christian's true identity. Despite being hounded for years about this, Martin kept his word to his dying day. So R.C. Christian transferred the funds, purchased 5 acres of land in Elbert County, Georgia, and construction finally began. And just like that, R.C. Christian was gone, and nobody would ever see him again. The 5-acre plot of pasture was the highest point in Elbert County and visible from all directions, the ideal location. The Georgia Guidestones were erected and revealed to the public on March 22, 1980, the vernal equinox. A few hundred people, local media, and even Elberton's congressmen came out for the unveiling. Including the foundation stones, the monument's total weight was almost 240,000 pounds.
Wow.
Over the years, thousands of visitors from all over the world would come to see the Georgia Guidestones. But what was so special about the stones? It was more than just an impressively large granite construction. It was the new 10 Commandments, sandblasted in 4-inch high letters that R.C. Christian left to benefit humanity.
Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Unite humanity with a living new language. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Balance personal rights with social duties. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature.
Leave room for nature. Not respect all of nature. Leave room.
At first glance, some of these commandments seem fairly innocent and maybe even cliche. But when you take a closer look, the guides are unsettling. Some have claimed that the Georgia Guidestones are instructions for a new world order, an open call for eugenics, genocide, and a one-world government. But we're told this is all conspiracy theory, that there's no evidence to support these claims.
But there's evidence?
Oh yeah, plenty of it. At first glance, the 10 rules on the Georgia Guidestone sounded like a cheesy New Age bumper sticker, but if you read them carefully, they're disturbing. Let's start with the first one. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. The current population is just under 8 billion people. To achieve the Guidestone's ideal population means that roughly 94% of people on Earth would need to be eradicated. And there are many people and think tanks that support this. On this channel, we've covered the Club of Rome, that defines itself as a nonprofit, informal organization of intellectuals and business leaders whose goal is a critical discussion of pressing global issues. Fine. But what the Club of Rome doesn't advertise so openly is that it was created in 1968 by the Morgenthau Group during a secret meeting at Rockefeller's private estate Bellagio.
Oh, here we go.
In August 1980, just a few months after the Guidestones went up, Howard Odom, a member of the Club of Rome, said, "It's necessary that the U.S. cut its population by 2/3 within the next 50 years. He didn't mention how this should be accomplished. But there are theories.
Ooh, I love theories.
I know you do.
But it does mean if you want the same standard of living, we're going to have to cut our population in the U.S., for example, certainly to 1/4. But we have so many wasteful things, that won't be hard.
You say it won't be hard to cut the population by 1/4?
It just takes one generation to get a population down if nobody bred for one generation.
You've probably heard of the Bilderberg Group. It was formed in 1954 as a way to prevent another world war. That's what they say publicly. So why are Bilderberg meetings so secret? Secrecy has created all kinds of conspiracy theories.
I love theories.
I know you do. One of these is that the Bilderberg Group believes that the current population growth is not sustainable. Allegedly, one way the Bilderberg Group would try to reduce human population is by causing pandemics.
Oh no.
The theory also says the Bilderberg Group will keep their true plan secret by consolidating all media to a handful of mega companies, and then use governments to work with these media companies on censoring any ideas that go against the group's wishes.
Ooh, that's not a theory, that's true.
Well, of course it's true. Just look at Twitter. Both Trump and Biden aggressively pressured Twitter into censoring any information that went against their agendas. But whether the Bilderberg Group is behind this or not is unknown.
Yeah, unknown only if you're a sheep.
And guess who writes the foreign policy for the Bilderberg Group?
The Club of Rome?
The Club of Rome. Now, it's been alleged that the Club of Rome supports massive depopulation using any means necessary.
Well, didn't we fight World War II over these ideas?
Well, funny you should mention that. The founder of the Bilderberg Group was Prince Bernhard. At the beginning of World War II, he was a Nazi SS officer.
Of course he was.
Now, to be fair, after Germany conquered France, Prince Bernhard switched sides and fought for the Allies.
Oh, so that makes him okay?
Hey, I'm just giving both sides of his story. But many people say that all of this is nothing but conspiracy theory, that the Georgia Guidestones don't want to reduce the current population, but instead are instructions for how to rebuild society after a cataclysmic world event. Okay, let's say that's true. How should the remaining survivors maintain control of the population? And who decides? The second Guidestone rule addresses this. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. R.C. Christian wrote a book entitled Common Sense Renewed, which he sent to each member of Congress in 1986. Among a myriad of statements, Christian wrote,
"It is vitally important that each national government have a considered population policy. The need is urgent and should take precedence over other problems, even those of national defense."
Okay, so he wants the government in charge. So what kind of people should the government allow to have children?
Responsible parenting will consider both genetic and environmental factors. We must seek to produce healthy children and then to mold their characters. and to develop their potentials as socially worthwhile adults who will in turn carry the process indefinitely into the future. We have a grave duty to use all available knowledge in perfecting the forces which guide our procreation. It is within our power to leave behind us a new generation of humanity, slightly superior to our own in intellectual, physical, and social capabilities.
Yeesh, this sounds a lot like China.
Oh yeah, he's a fan of punishing people who want big families.
A few generations of single-child families will make possible dramatic improvements. Irresponsible childbearing must be discouraged by legal and social pressures.
Allowing only worthy people to reproduce to create a generation of genetically superior children? That's called eugenics.
Oh, so that's frowned upon, eh?
It is. It's what the Nazis did, or tried to do. It's also a war crime, but maybe not a crime at all in the New World Order. The Rockefeller that helped create the Club of Rome is the same guy who founded the Population Council in 1954. The Population Council supported, and still supports, research in birth control and early birth termination, specifically in those people with undesirable genetics. How do we know? Rockefeller said so.
Modern civilization had reduced the operation of natural selection by saving more weak lives and enabling them to reproduce, resulting in a downward trend in genetic quality. An organization needed to be created that would be devoted to the reduction of fertility of weaker individuals with undesirable genetics.
One of the members of the Population Council, as recently as 2020, has been accused of supporting forced sterilization. The council is still active today. It operates its programs in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East. Notice that North America and Europe are not on that list. The Population Council takes in millions upon millions of dollars every year. And the biggest contributor? The United States government.
Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident.
Stories that Dr. Reddick shares with us, the stories we heard last night, the stories we've been hearing for 2 years. 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban. This includes Georgia and every state in the South except Virginia. Think about that when you also...
This is a message from mothers. When was Roe v. Wade overturned, creating the current abortion ban? When did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris take office? Whose ban is it?
Think about that. And these hypocrites want to start talking about this is in the best interest of women and children? Well, where you been? Where you been when it comes to taking care of the women and children of America?
Also this morning, X Factor. Donald Trump speaking out on X about his assassination attempt in a wide-ranging conversation with Elon Musk.
For those people that don't believe in God, I think we got to all start thinking about that. You have to, I'm a believer. Now I'm more of a believer, I think.